Welcome back to the Figma Bootcamp. I'm AOA, and in the previous video, we've explored auto layout and how to create flexible and responsive designs. Today, we are diving into another essential Figma features, which is components. You can think of components as reusable building blocks that maintain a connection to their sources. The source is called the main component, and any other versions of the same component is called an instance. They are like smart templates that updates everywhere when you change it in one place. By the end of this video, you'll understand how to create, use, and organize components to build consistent, maintainable design. So let's get started. As always, before we dive into the technical details, let's understand why components are essentials for professional design. Imagine you are designing an app with dozens of screens, and they all contain the same navigation, right? But without components, if your client make a change and ask that the message needs to be on the left side and not the right side, you will need to go through here and then reorganize that element, place it properly, select the second one that is underneath, move it back, and you need to do that through everything. Yes, you could do that once and then copy and paste on every screens, but it doesn't really make any sense, specifically if some of them have the active states off. With the combination of auto layout and component, this is fixed. If we have our main component, which is going to be with a purple outline, the concept of changing message to the left side and schedule to the right side is achieved in 3 clicks. You can see how everything changed places according to my changes on the main component. Components ensure consistency across your design and create a shared design language for your team. It's also really helpful for your devs to know that they just need to work on that specific instance first, once, and then everything will work. You don't need to rework on the same design multiple times. At their core, components represent a shift in mindset from static design and individual screens to system of reusable element. So let's create our first component. We'll use the schedule at the top to create an element that would be reusable in each of these instances. So let's bring back the UI and we'll select everything. Right now, this is currently a frame and not an auto layout frame. For the sake of the exercise, I will transform that into an auto layout frame. It will be way easier. So Shift A, as we've seen before, which has everything that it needs, the day of the week, the number, and the background. This frame 61 is to be renamed as schedule. In order to make a component out of this element, we will click on this button, Create Component, or Command Alt K or Control Alt K. That will change the border to be purple and not blue, but also changes its icon in the layer list with this 4 lozenge purple icon. Right now, it is right here. I will duplicate it, the Command D, and then you can see how an instance is just an outline of that lozenge, and the main component is the 4 lozenge element. So, instances, component, pretty simple. The goal for us and the reason why I'm duplicating it is to be able to move it outside of the frame to work on it around here. This element now is a main component and will impact anything that is using it. So if for some reason we decided orange is nice, but our app is blue, so we need this thing to be blue, we can come here, change the color to blue. You can see that it changes right there. But the rest of the properties are also available. If we wanted to change the spacing in between the text and the number, we could do that. If we wanted to change the orientation, left align, top align, everything would be an option. While the connection between the main component and its instance is there, you can go inside of the instance and decide to change numbers, values, colors as you wish, and this is called an override. You can override most properties of a component instance, including the text or of the component, the stroke effect, basically most of the things. If there is an auto layout that is applied, it can also be overridden. Like frames, inside of component frames, you can have other component frames. So if for some reason we had this icon inside and that was a component, it would 100% be an option to have it displayed. One of the latest addition to Figma is the component properties, meaning that you can have a property for elements. Right now, these two values of text don't have any properties, but maybe they need to. So let's change this T for a new property called days of the week, or day of the week. I shouldn't have had an S, but that's fine. This will be accessible through the inspector by giving me a text input and let me change the values directly from the inspector. You can still 100% go in and change the values directly in the component as a manual override. Something that we need in this specific instance of the schedule is a secondary version of the same component for alignment purposes, but also to ensure it maintains a coherent design across everything. This is achieved with component variants, which is that plus button right here. Variant group is going to be created and it englobes or encapsulates both of our current instances with selected and now newer version unselected. For the sake of the exercise and showcasing everything that we can do with properties and component variables, I'm going to call that false, meaning that our initial is going to be true and our property name is going to be is selected. The main differences are going to be the text value are going to change in terms of color and the background is going to go from selected blue to white. So let's change the background to white. Let's ensure that these two elements are using a version of black. Maybe the T needs to be with a certain opacity, something different. Let's put that at 60%. And now we have two versions. Our goal now is to know that we have 7 days of the week. That schedule right here needs to be an auto layout frame, and that these needs to be duplicated 7 times. This auto layout frame needs to have 0 in padding, and we can remove these elements. And now that this has been done, we can have each and every one of these instances take is selected. We will have the ability to change their values by saying this was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Sunday. You can select multiple if they have the same property and change that. Numbers, not going to bother right now. One last thing. We may have sometimes the ability to show and hide elements. If we have events, let's add an absolute positioning dot underneath of the number to notice the user that they have an event on that day. Let's use the O for oval, as we've seen in the second video. Make a dot of 8, ensure that this element is actually absolute positioning. Ignore the layout, making sure that it's placed at 4 at the bottom. And let's change this value to white here. Let's place it there as well. Make it blue, so it will change color. And for the sake of the exercise, let's make this an opacity of 40 so it's not that visible. Now, we don't have events every day. So we want the user to have the ability to know exactly when something is or isn't. You can select the element from the main component, both at the time, and add a property of visibility. Show layer is not going to be the thing as event, usually how variables are named. True, meaning that if we are here and we wanted to have an event only on Monday and Sunday, we can then unselect as event. And these dots aren't disappearing. Same for this one. So as you create more components, organization becomes kind of crucial. You can keep everything in one page. You can make one page per type of components. This is up to you. What I would recommend is have a page with most of your components and instances of the components that are used in a specific page next to the screens in which they are used. This will help your devs know that in this page we're using these components. If some of them are not done and devved just yet, please work on that first. So today we've explored the fundamentals of components in Figma, which is a very powerful system of creating reusable elements across your designs. We've learned how to create basic components and instances, use overrides and customization properties, how we could build components inside of each other, add components property for flexibility or visibility of elements, and organize effectively your components in your files. Components really transform how you work in Figma. It's shifting the focus from designing individual screens to creating design systems or a system of reusable elements. This approach not only saves time, like auto layout, but also create a more consistent and professional design. In our next video, we'll explore interactive prototyping. We'll see how components and auto layout works together with prototyping to create some sort of a realistic interactive experience. If you found this video helpful, as always, don't forget to subscribe for the entire Figma Bootcamp. Patreon members have already seen this video and have access to the Figma file directly. If you want to check it out, the link is going to be in the description down below. What component would you like to see me build in the future video? Let me know in the comments. As always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.